No, if you ever use tools like Zapier or N8N to automate workflows, imagine taking that same idea, but replacing hard-coded logic with actual reasoning. OpenAI's new agent builder lets you create workflows that don't just follow rules. They think, decide, and ultimately adapt. And so today we're going to be exploring what that looks like, why it's such a big deal, and how you can start building your first agentic workflows in mere minutes. In today's video, we'll be covering the following aspects of this amazing tool. Number one, what makes Agent Builder so powerful and how it's fundamentally different from tools like Zapier or N8N. Number two, a quick tour of the interface, the three main panes that make up the workflow editor. Number three, how to create and evaluate your first workflow using the built-in agent debugger. We'll also be looking at three real-world examples, each one more advanced than the last. Following that, I'm going to be showing you how you can change your agent's output from plain text to structured JSON, or even an on-screen widget card. And last but not least, we're going to be exploring the different ways that you can integrate your app with your workflow. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why is this such a big deal? And how is this different than Zapier, N8N, and other tools you may be already familiar with? So traditional automation tools like Zapier or N8N are rule-based, okay? They work great when you know exactly what should happen. Basically, if this, then that. If this happens, then that needs to happen. But Agent Builder isn't rule-based, it's reasoning-based. It lets an AI decide why something should happen, not just when. So instead of wiring hundreds of pre-built connectors, you give one agent access to a few tools and it figures out which one to use, when to call them, and how to validate the results. Essentially, it's the difference between programming and collaborating, okay? So Zapier moves data, Agent Builder moves decisions. All right, so next let's jump into the Agent Builder and let's have a quick look around and see what's happening there, okay? And so here I am in Agent Builder, and you can reach Agent Builder by going to platform.openai.com/Agent Builder. Another thing that you can do is you can click over here, Agent Builder here, from this platform dashboard page here. And once you do that, you're going to be seeing something like this. Now, I already have some templates here that I'm going to be showing you in just a little bit. So if you have not configured any templates, you might not be seeing anything here, okay? But if you jump over to templates here, you can see some interesting templates that you can use to create your workflows. And so why don't we go ahead and create a brand new, very, very simple workflow. And then later, I'm going to be showing you some very, very interesting examples that I already created for you, along with an app that interacts with them in some very interesting ways. So we're going to click here and we're going to create a very, very simple workflow right now. Okay, so when you do that, you're going to be seeing your screen changing a little bit, right? So on the canvas right in front of you, you see your nodes. Now, if you've used N8N or Zapier or BuildShip, and chances are you've probably used one of them or all of them if you've been watching my channel for a while, you're probably familiar with the screen, right? This is pretty much what every single workflow type builder uses to display the connection between nodes, okay? But this is not just any workflow builder. This works radically different. Now, in the agent builder, everything starts with a start node, okay? So regardless what kind of workflow you're going to be building, you're going to have a start node. So if we select the start node, you're going to be seeing some properties over here. Okay, so this start node has input as text. This is your input, the user's input, or the user types that propagates and decides how the whole workflow is going to work. Okay. Now, on the left-hand side, you have the various nodes. Now, Agent Builder is relatively easy to understand because you don't have like a billion nodes. But the thing about Agent Builder is that a lot of these nodes, they are very, very powerful. And so you don't really need to have like hundreds or 50 nodes. You just need some of these nodes because they can do a lot of things. Now, let me quickly go down this list. This is very, very simple. First, we have the agent. Okay, now this is going to be like the star of the show. This is going to be the node that you're going to be using most of the time in many situations. Because at the end of the day, agent builder is nothing more, nothing less than a workflow that has multiple of these agents. It's like having many chat GPTs interconnected and having extra features. Okay, you can think of it like this. So this is the main node. Next, we have the end node, right? So this is the node that basically signifies that the workflow should end. Okay, so if I have a start node here and I have an agent that does something, and at that point, I just want things to end. Then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag that and paste that. That's it. Okay, now I can have an output here as well, or I can just end it. Okay, so that's the end node. The next is the node. So this is a way to document the workflow. This is not a node that's going to be connected anywhere in your workflow. This is a node that you can just document, right? So for instance, let's say I want to document this agent, right? This is a helpful assistant, and the purpose of this agent is to do classification. So I can say classification agent, agent classify whether the email is feature request or help or help or refund request or something like this. Okay, that's all you're going to be doing, and you can kind of expand it like this. Really nice, and this way you can place them on the canvas so that when you're looking at the workflow, you can immediately see this stuff here. And if you've been doing any coding, if you have any experience with that, you can think of this as comments, right? So you're writing code, you're building a workflow, you're going to be having comments here, okay? Next, we have the tools, okay? So we have file search, we have guardrails, and we have MCP. So let's start off with the file search. So what is the file search? Well, you place that there and you select it. The file search is a way to query your files. And the way that you set it up is that you first need to specify your vector store ID, okay? And so presumably you would be doing that before, right? You would upload your files to OpenAI. You would generate a vector store, right? So here I am on platform.openai storage, right? This is the agent builder, this is storage. And what I can do here is I can create vector stores, right? So I can click over here and I can upload a file, and that's going to go ahead and create a vector store to make all kinds of LLM operations on files a lot easier, okay? Because LLMs don't understand files, they understand numbers, right? And that's what vectors do. They transform your data into numbers that the LLM can understand. So this is a topic for a completely separate video, which I might be covering in the future. But safe to say, this is a way to deal with files. Next, we have a very, very interesting node called guardrails. And this is actually a very, very cool feature. And so if I place that there and I select it, this allows me to run moderation, deal with PII, which is personally identifiable information, deal with jailbreak attempts, deal with hallucination checks, and also handle hallucination by inserting these hallucination checks. And this is actually a really, really nice node, because when the user enters something, you want to make sure that the data is sanitized, okay? And so typically what you want to do is you want to maybe delete this one, and you want to place this here. And so you want to sanitize the data that's coming in. So we're going to put this guardrails, and now we have this input as text, which is this input here. And now you can select what kind of operations. Do you want to filter PII? Do you want to do moderation? Do you want to do jailbreak? Jailbreak is awesome, because there's always people that are going to be trying to, jailbreak the model, basically hijack the system prompt and tell the model to do something else, as opposed to what the model is designed to do. Okay, so jailbreak is something that you want to be doing, a lot, if not most of the time. Okay, but you can also do hallucination, moderation, all of this stuff. So this is really nice. And if it passes, you can continue, right? So we can simply put an agent here. And if it passes, we can do this. And if it fails, we can just do end. Okay? And this is awesome because you don't need to worry about the input from the user, right? Because there's so many ways to kind of jailbreak the model, to get the model to do all kinds of not the best things, bad things, you can say. And you have this built in. So, if you want to, and so, like I said, if you want to jailbreak it, you can simply do it right here, and that's going to go ahead and jailbreak it. Okay, so this is the kind of setup you typically want to have. Okay, next we have MCP. So what is MCP? Well, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and in simplest way, it's a way to get the model to talk to another system, to get this agent to talk to another system. So if I select this over here, I can add a MCP tool, and this is going to mean that this agent workflow is going to act as a client that's going to connect to some third-party MCP server to do some interesting things in the context of that tool, right? So, like Gmail or any of these other ones. So if I click on add, I have Gmail, I have Google Calendar, Google Drive, I have Stripe, I have PayPal, Shopify, all of these things. I can select different types of MCP servers. I can also add a custom MCP server that is available somewhere, or something that or something that I perhaps have built myself. Okay, so this is a very, very powerful feature, because this allows this agent workflow to connect to a third-party tool and perform all kinds of operations. This is very, very cool. Now, this next section deals with logic. So we have if and else. So if I place that there, this is kind of like this, right? If this happens, do this, else do this. And so if I select the node, we can create an if condition, and I can add multiple conditions, right? If this, else, if this, else, do this, right? This is very, very helpful. If you want to branch logic, you want your model to make decisions, you want your agent to make different decisions, and you can do it using something called common expression language, which is something that we're going to be talking about once we get into concrete examples that I have prepared for this presentation for you guys, okay? We're going to delete that. Next, we have while, okay? And so while is a loop control. Basically, it's going to loop while a condition is true, and you can set a condition here, okay? That needs to be true for this loop to basically continue, okay? So if you have a situation where you need to work with a list of things, well, you want that loop to go through every single element until you get to the last element, or until that loop control variable is more or equals to, depending on how you do it, to the number of items in the list. So this is also something that's very important, right? Logic is super important. So it's great that they've included that. We also have something called user approval, okay? So if you place that and we select it, this is a way for the agent to pause and for a human to approve or reject a step. Okay, so imagine you're creating an agent whose job is to do customer service, and the user requests a refund. And you say, well, we don't want to do a refund, or we can't do a refund because it's been over 30 days, but we can do a partial refund, or maybe we'll give you a coupon code for something else. Because you're offering a user something that the user may not have requested initially, you want to do something like user approval. You want the user to come in and say, yes, I'm cool with this. I want this option. Or no, I don't want this option. Give me my money back, or do something else, right? Give me another offer. So this is another thing that you can do. And so typically you want to have the agent that does something, maybe presents an offer, does something else, says to the user, hey, we didn't get exactly what you wanted, but we got this. Are you cool with this? And so after the agent, you can do user approval, okay? So that's our logic section here. And last but definitely not least, we have data stuff, right? So these are the things that you can do to data, right? So data transform, you can select that, and you can have expressions, right? So you can have expressions, you can have an object here, right? So with expressions, you can enter a value. This is the key, this is your data. And then you can do a value. And with objects, you need to be working with schema. So you can add a schema here. You can also generate a schema. And this is something that I'm going to be showing you in a little bit. But suffice to say, you'll be able to transform all kinds of objects, whether it's a simple thing or a complete object that you need to transform into something else. Very, very useful as well. Okay. And last but definitely not least, we have set state. Okay. And this is a way to control your global variables. Now, on start here, you can add state variables. This is something that I did not mention because I talked about input variables, but you can also have state variables, right? So I can add a state variable, a string, something like, I don't know, version, and actually a number, and I can say 1. And so this gives you a way to manage your state variables. And managing state variables, managing your state is very, very powerful because you can track all kinds of cool things, and essentially your workflow knows what's happening with the data that you may be defining at the beginning of the workflow or in the middle or at the end, right? This gives you a lot of powerful functionality that can be exploited to build all kinds of powerful apps. And so that's our quick overview of Agent Builder. And you may have noticed that it's not that complex. Like I said in the beginning of the video, there's not, 50, 20, 100 nodes, all kinds of nodes that you may never use. Essentially, you're given a set of nodes to make your user experiences a lot better, okay? And so now, before I show you the interesting workflows that I have built and the integrations, even a web app that I built specifically for this video, let's go ahead and create a very, very simple workflow so that you get an idea of how they interact. And also, I want to show you some ways that you can debug a workflow using this very, very powerful Agent Builder debugger, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all of these nodes that we have created, including this node here. And we're going to start from this start node, okay? You can't really delete the start node, just so that you know. So do not worry, it needs to exist. Okay. And so let's say we want to create an agent that does classification. Okay. So as an example, I'm going to drag an agent here and the user enters some kind of input, right? So maybe the user wants to get information about a product, or maybe the user wants to get a refund. In other words, what we want to do is we want to build a classifier agent, right, whose whole existence, whose whole purpose. And by the way, when you're thinking about your workflows, you want to break up tasks into different agents, right? One agent does this, another agent does that, a separate agent does that. That is the mindset that you want to have coming into this, okay? So this agent is going to be doing one thing and one thing only, and that is classifying, okay? It's going to be classifying information coming in. And so as an example, let's say that we want to know whether the email that's coming in or request that's coming in is a bug, to mark a bug report, or a feature enhancement, or just a comment. Okay, maybe you've built a SaaS app and you have this widget running there, and the users, they can submit a bug, submit a feature request, or simply let you know that they love your app or maybe they hate your app. Okay. So what we want to do here is we want this agent to act as a classifier, and then based on how it classifies, we want to take a certain action. Okay. And so here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a prompt for this agent, right? Now I can type it in myself, or I can click here, and that's going to help me devise a prompt to do just that. So what I want to have is a classifier agent that classifies, that categorizes a text into 3 areas. Okay, feature request, bug report, or a comment, or a user comment. Okay, so I'm going to say create, and that's going to go ahead and generate a prompt for this agent. Okay, so there we have it. So you can click here to expand it. And look at this, classify the provided text into 3 categories: feature, bug report, user request. And so there's more stuff here: output format, JSON, all of this, example, all of this. And I'm going to get to the output format in just a second, because that's very, very important. But besides this prompt, you can also add context, input as text. Now, we don't have to add it in this case because it's part of the conversation, right? User enters it, it's here, it's part of the convo. This agent will know about this context here. Okay, so we want to include this in the chat history, and we want to select the model. Now, you can use GPT-5, you can use any model that you want. You also have access to other models, GPT Codex, Mini. You can also use GPT-4. It's cheaper because remember, when you configure it, you're using your API keys, you're using your spend. And so for some of these tasks, you may not need GPT-5 latest and greatest. You may only need something like GPT-4 Mini or even Nano, right? Classification is very, very simple. Okay, so we can even select like GPT-4 Nano. Now, you can also click on more and see some of the more things that you can configure. So like temperature, max tokens, top P. I recommend that you leave all of this on defaults. Now, here in ChatKit, this is very interesting. This is something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later because I actually built ChatKit integration, right? And so if you're building a ChatKit integration, you can select whether you want to display the response of this node in the chat or just like the final node. Or if you want to show search sources, right? If it's doing a web search, if you want to have sources, we're just going to leave it on for now. It's absolutely fine. And then we have advanced, continue on error, or should it just halt? Or write to conversation history. So conversation history is the history of the convo. It's not necessarily what the user sees, but it's what this agent knows about. So we want to write to history. Okay. In some situations, you want to deselect this because you don't want your chat kit display to have all of this intermediate stuff in there. But in this case, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to leave it on. Okay. So I'm going to click on less. And now what I want to do is I want to show you tools and output format. Okay. So for tools, if you click here, you can enable various tools like a client tool, chat kit, hosted MCP file search, code interpreter, a function that you can output for another system to run, et cetera, et cetera. We don't really need tools here. But the output format, we do need the output format. You can select text, JSON, or widget. And I'm going to be talking about this widget because that is another thing altogether. Really, really awesome thing. I'm gonna be talking about it in just a few moments. But in this example, the best would be JSON, right? So I'm going to select JSON, and now we can add a schema. And so I'm going to click on Add Schema here, and you can design a schema. Now, why do we need a schema, and why do we even need JSON? Well, we need a JSON, and we need a schema because this is not the final node. This is not something that's going to be outputted to the user, right? This is classification, and we need the rest of the workflow to understand clearly and decisively what this agent classified is. And because we're going to have other nodes here, we want this to be in machine readable format. We don't want it to be in text, which is, human readable format. We want it to be in something like JSON, which is a machine readable format. So I'm going to add a schema, and I'm going to generate a schema. So I'm just going to say something like classifier data, and what do we have classifying? Either as a bug report, feature enhancement, or just a comment, just a user comment. And so in this case, what would be ideal is for a schema that can automatically select one of these options. And one way to do it is via an enum, and that's probably what it's going to ultimately choose. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to say create, and it's generating a schema for us automatically, and let's see what it does. And there we have it. Type is enum, which is perfect because it needs to be only one of this. Bug report, feature enhancement, or user comment. We're going to say update, and now we have this classifier data, right? You can click here. You can change it if you want. You can also click on advanced, and you can see that this is an enum, which means that it needs to be one of these. It cannot be something else. It cannot be two of these. It cannot be all of these. It needs to be one of these specific options, which is exactly what we want. We're going to say update, okay? So we're going to connect this right here, this agent here. And now what we can do is we can have this if and else, right? We can make a decision based on what this agent decided to do. So I'm going to connect this agent. And I'm going to click over here, and this asks us to use something called a common expression language, which in fancy terms just means that you just type the result of what you have here, just make it equal or not equal. It's very, very simple. It's extremely simple comparison. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this classifier data, I'm going to say condition, and now, here you can have a case name, which is optional, but we don't need to do that. But if you click on condition, now here what we want is just the type, right? Because it parsed it. We just want the type, right? So I'm going to go into type and I'm going to say equals to, and what's the first type? The first type is a bug report, right? So I'm going to say bug report. Okay. And this is legit. If I, and it understands it, right? So this is bug report. And I can in fact copy this and I can add another else if, and here I can say this is not bug report. This is now a enhancement, whatever it was. What was it? Let me click on classifier, the feature enhancement, right? Bug report, feature enhancement, and user comment. So I'm going to click back here and I'm going to say feature enhancement. And last but not least is the else, right? And this else is going to be a user comment because it needs to be one of those, right? And so else is going to be automatically a user comment, okay? And so bug report, you may want to connect to some third-party system. You may want to do some kind of an MCP call or something like that. That is one thing that you can do. Or what we can do is we can have another agent, and the purpose of this agent is to just respond, to just say, hey, thanks for submitting this bug report, or thanks for submitting this feature enhancement. So I'm going to create 3 agents, okay, and each one is going to be tasked with something different. Okay, so I'm going to connect one here, and I'm going to connect this one here. And so the purpose of this agent may be to connect to another system. But what we're going to say is we're just going to say, hey, just tell the user, thanks for submitting the bug report, okay? So I'm going to say something like, acknowledge the bug and thank the user for submission, for the submission, okay? And this one, acknowledge the feature enhancement and thank the user for submission. And last but not least, acknowledge the comment, user's comment, and thank the user for the submission. That's it. And then what we can do is we can just simply end it here. This ends, and this ends. Okay? And that's it. And now we have a workflow. We have a workflow that we can run, that we can integrate to, that we can do all kinds of interesting things. And before we actually run this workflow, before we publish it, before we do all that, I want to show you some interesting ways, and in fact, some very, very powerful ways to debug this workflow, okay? So let's say you want to debug this agent. You want to make sure that this specific agent works as expected. It actually classifies the data correctly. Well, you can run this workflow and test it out in real time, or you can test out just this node using this amazing agent builder debugger here, okay? So I'm going to select this agent and I'm going to click on evaluate. Now I cannot click evaluate without adding variables, right? I need to have variables because when we evaluate something, we evaluate it in isolation, okay? And so here we have a variable, but here we don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter a variable. So let's say, in fact, it says provided text. I'm just going to say, let's go ahead and add a context. This is the input text. And then add it to the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it here. The provided classify just this. Okay. And now we can click on evaluate. So I'm going to click on evaluate. And we are going to be redirected to a debugging dashboard. And this allows us to debug our agents, right? Agent Builder is all about agents, right? And so it makes sense to have a robust debugging interface. On this screen, we now have 3 different things that we can do. We have our data. So if you click here, we have our data. We have our prompts, and we can create another prompt. But right now we have the data and the prompt. We can add additional prompts, test them out to see if we get better results. But right now that's what we have. And so what is the input text? Well, that is what the user is going to input. So in our case, let's say I input something like, this is an awesome app. Thanks so much for building it. I look forward to future updates. Something like this. We can get out. And now I can generate output. See how it classifies it. Okay, let's go ahead and click that. Generate output, and hopefully it classifies it correctly, which it just did. User comment. Now, let's say I try something else. There's a problem when submitting user info. It exits out, it errors with 500 internal server error. Okay, so this is a bug report. Let's generate input. generate prompt bug report. And last but not least, let's do a feature enhancement example. I'd love for the app to have a, I don't know, user dashboard or something like that. Okay. Now, if I click that, that should be the other one, feature enhancement. So as you can see from our first test, it's doing exactly what it should be doing. If it didn't, if it was messing up and you were not getting the right features, you were not getting what you wanted to get, you would need to look at your prompt and create another prompt that may be working better or fix this prompt and, and then run this generate output again. Okay. But because this is a very, very simple example, we can simply do this and see what's happening. Okay. So at this point, we are happy with this agent. This agent does what we wanted to do. And in fact, you can save all of this, right? In fact, if you want to come back to it again and have your data, right? Because we're creating a data set here, right? So I can exit out. And right now I'm on this evaluation stage, right? I have my data here. I have my data set, stuff like that. And I can simply go back to Agent Builder and I can be back into the on the UI here that we were just building. Okay, so this is our workflow here. So we know this agent works. And now we have another agent that we can test. Acknowledge the bug report and thank the user. So I cannot evaluate that. So let's try to evaluate that. Let's say we're going to put a context and this is the type right here. Okay. And now I can click on evaluate and now it has the type. Let's see if it's able to evaluate. This is a very, very simple task. Okay. So let's say the type is bug report. Let's see how it thanks the user. Generate the output. Thanks for reporting this bug. We appreciate your help. We've logged the issue and we'll investigate if you can share steps to reproduce, right? So we just said to acknowledge it and came up with all of this, right? Now, we can obviously tweak this prompt. We can say something like, acknowledge the bug report in one sentence and thank the user in one sentence, or in one word if you want, right? So we can say update, and now we can try this again. I'm going to say generate, and let's see what it comes up with. Okay? And that's the one sentence now. We can make it even shorter, right? 4 words, 5 words, whatever you want. But this is cool. I'm happy with this. And so I'm going to update. I can save this. I can update that, or I can just update this prompt. I'm going to go ahead and update the prompt. Now we're back here, and you see it updated the prompt because the first prompt was too broad. It was too generic. So the LLM just did whatever it wanted. It wasn't specific enough. Okay. And so at this point, I'm pretty happy with this workflow here, right? So we can publish it. We can start working with it. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. And I'm going to say user feedback. WF stands for workflow. I'm going to say publish that. And now the workflow is published. And so now if you click here, you can see that this is now in production. So this workflow, and we only have one version 1, it is in production. If we start messing with it, if we start changing stuff, let's say I want to change this here, this becomes a draft again. And so we can publish it. And that means that this workflow will be live, not the other version. But if we realize that we made a mistake, we can always roll back, right? So let's say I do publish here and I screwed up, right? I realized that this is not bug report 1, it should be just bug report. Well, I can change it here, publish it again, or I can simply roll back. I can go to V1 and I can deploy that. And so what this means is that I have access to all the versions. Okay, so version 1 is in production, version 2 may be another version. And if I deploy this one, right, I make a change and deploy it, that's going to be version 3. So this versioning is awesome because you can always roll back. You can go to another version. You're tracking the changes, right? So another very, very cool feature, okay? So now that we built this very, very simple workflow, let me show you some other workflow that I built specifically for this video, plus a web app that can serve as the user access point. So users can access the web app, and that web app basically invokes this whole workflow, which is exactly what you want to be doing anyway, right? You want to have a web app or a mobile app or something that's sitting in front of this whole workflow that's, using integrations to get to it and showing the users exactly what they need to see without getting into the complexity of it all. So the workflows that I have created are these ones, right? We have a research workflow, we have a beach series workflow, which is actually pretty cool, and we have a customer service workflow. So if I go into this first research workflow here, this is a very, very simple workflow, okay? So I have some comments here. And the purpose of this workflow is to research something and then summarize and display it. Okay, now this workflow, it looks very, very simple, but it does some very, very powerful things that we actually haven't talked about before. Okay, that I'm sure you're going to find very, very fascinating, just as I did when I discovered this. Okay, so you are a helpful assistant. Use web search to find information about the following company. I can use in my marketing asset based on the underlying topic. Okay, summarize and display. And then once we have this research about the company, we want to show it to the user in a very aesthetically pleasing way. Not text, not JSON, but something called widget. And before I kind of explain to you how this works, let me show you how it looks. So put the research together in a nice display using the output format described, right? This is this widget output format. And in order to show you how this workflow works, I actually went ahead and I built a web app that does just that, okay? So if we go to this research report, right, which is that workflow, we essentially tell it what kind of research that we want to do, right? So as an example, it basically tells us, tell me which company or industry to investigate, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say we want to analyze NVIDIA, right? NVDA, okay? So I can type it here or I can select it here. Now, all of that is done by this web app, okay? So I'm going to click here. And now it says produce a briefing on NVIDIA, and it's working. It's actually executing our workflow right now. Okay, so let's see what we get back. And instead of text, we get back a very, very beautiful widget, right? This is actually a widget, and this is a feature that's built into this integration that we're using, this card kit integration that we are using to access our workflow, because you can access this workflow using several different integrations, right? You have this card kit functionality, which is what we're doing. You also have this server-based agent SDK, which is this lower level. And then at the lowest level, you can access it using REST API. So if you're building something like a Flutterflow app, right, that's no code, and it can't really use libraries as a regular app can use, you want to be using this REST API HTTP interface. And so you're going to get all of this data and then create the widgets inside of Flutterflow. That is one way to do it. But because we have a web app here, a JavaScript app that I have built specifically for this tutorial, we are displaying this beautiful widget card. Now, you may be thinking at this point, well, how does it create all this? How does this work? Well, let me show you how this works. We go back here and we click on this last one, this last node. We have an output format. I can do text. And in fact, let me show you what happens if I do text. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And let me show you what happens. So if I go back to my web app here and I click over here and I do analyze and video, we're no longer going to be seeing that widget anymore. We're just going to be seeing text. And let me show you how this looks. Okay, so this is what we get back. Okay, look at this. Okay, we're getting some JSON data, and this is what we see. We're essentially seeing text JSON data, okay? And so you tell me which format you like better. So if I go back here and I switch this to widget and I have this widget selected, I'm going to show you exactly how to do all that. And I hit publish. We now have a brand new workflow that has been published. And now if I go back to restart, do analyze in video, it analyzes it, but the output format is going to look a lot nicer than that JSON or just basic text. Take a look at this. You're going to be seeing that widget card that you saw before. Okay, and there's that widget card here. So before we go any further, how does this widget card work? Well, if you go back here, you can select this, and I already have this card. So if I click on this card, I can see how it looks, right? This is exactly how it looks. And so I can click on edit, and that's going to bring me to another part of this widget builder, and that is this widget builder, right? This is another section. And this part here I found extremely fascinating because now OpenAI is diving into creating more of UI interfaces, right? Before it was mostly chat images, image manipulation, but now we have UI elements, right? So I created this widget here, but if you want to create a new widget, you can simply click here and you can describe it using a prompt, or you can go to a gallery and select a ready-made widget, go to components, and look at all of these components in case you want to build it by hand, because all of these widgets, if you click here, they're built by hand, right? Well, this is how you build them if you want it to be displayed like this. And you can also build them using a prompt, which is exactly what I did in one of the examples I'm going to be showing you in a little bit, because that is a custom app that I built, and I wanted to create a custom widget. And so instead of displaying things in a very kind of text format or JSON format that's not very aesthetically pleasing, you can create a cool widget and have it displayed like this. Okay, company website, you can do all of that. And you can also have actions that people can take. Okay, view details, close, redirect, right? You can do a lot of really cool things. Okay, and so let's go back and let's close all of this out. And so that was our first workflow here. Let me show you another cool workflow that I did that is actually pretty fun. It was fairly fun to do, right? This is beach cities. And so we have 3 agents here. Okay, we have 3 agents. Okay, so we have the start, we have a classifier. And so the purpose of this first agent is to classify the given city as belonging to either Europe or North America. Because the idea here with this workflow is that you enter your city and it's going to tell you all the beaches around you that meet a certain threshold. And so in this example, I told it, just give me the cities, the beach cities where the water temperature is at least 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So it's fairly warm to swim in, okay? But that's not all. I have another agent that gets the prices, right? It researches the flight prices to each city from the origin city and shows you all of that in a nice kind of report, okay? So let's go ahead and run this workflow using my web app here. We can click here on this beach planner. And we're seeing this nice UI that's hard-coded, right? This is hard-coded. It's basically to kick off a process, right? Because if you don't show the user anything, they might not know what to do. I mean, they can type anything, but they can select the city. And so let's say I live in Warsaw, okay? Warsaw, Poland. I click on Warsaw, and I should get recommendations to cities that are in Europe that have warm temperature, warm water temperature, and also see the prices. So now it's showing us intermediate nodes: Barcelona, Spain, water temperature 21, Valencia 22, Nice, France 2020. And if I scroll down, we not only see the temperatures, but we see this beautiful card here, right? Water temp 21, and this is the estimated fare from Warsaw, right? So not bad. If I want to enjoy Barcelona, Valencia, Malaga, Nice, I want to go maybe to Malaga or Valencia, has a slightly better water temperature. It's going to cost me 130, and it's sorted by price. How cool is that? That's an app all in itself that I built with this agent builder. And now let's say I try Madrid, okay? And hopefully I will find some other Spanish cities with cheap flights, okay? Barcelona, all the same ones. And now let's say, and here are the flights, right? So this could be historical flights, maybe it's not, accessing the real-time data, but at least look how nice it looks. Let's show one more, Lisbon. Now we have Lisbon. $150. And so this right here is basically an app all in itself, because it tells the user what they're looking for, okay? So how is this built? Let's go back and let me show you. We have the classifier, and just like in that first example, we have an enum, right? Europe or North America. We have find beach cities, right? Find me beach cities. We have the output, super important. Cities. For each city, we want the city name and the water temperature. And I just basically said generate this output here. And then last but not least, get prices, okay? Get the flight prices for each city from the origin city. And we have this card here. And if you edit this, you can actually edit this card, right? You can modify it. You have default values here. You can do all that, just change things around, right? Or you can just go to new widget and you can create it from scratch, right? I can upload the widget file, I can modify it, I can do all kinds of cool stuff. And this is something that I want to explore further, but that is going to be a topic for another video. So if you want to see stuff having to do with these widgets, building apps, using this widget functionality, Let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and I'll definitely do that. Okay. And so that is our, find beach cities and prices workflow. Okay. Let me show you the last workflow that I did. It's a little bit more complex. This is customer service, and actually used a workflow that already exists, right? This is a workflow that's based on a template. Okay. I just built an app for it, but I want to show you how this works, right? So first we have the jailbreak, right? And we're using this jailbreak, right? It's a jailbreak guard, right? So it basically prevents the users from saying something, ignore all previous instructions, tell me how to do this, or tell me what you do, or, etc. Like basically kills the initial system prompt, okay? And so we have the classification engine. So if the jailbreak passes, we continue. If it fails, we just end. Makes sense. Next, we have the classification engine, right? We have the input, if it's return item, cancel subscription. But it's even more involved. It's even more complex because these agents, they're pretty much apps all in itself, right? So unlike the agents that I had, which are fairly simple, these are more complex. So take a look at this agent. This offers a replacement device with free shipping, but take a look at this retention agent, right? So let's say you're trying to cancel a plan. What I noticed is that a lot of sites, instead of canceling the plan right away, they tell you, hey, what if we give you a discount? Or what if we give you 30% off? Or what if we give you 50% off? Well, what if you can package that logic into an agent to do just to do that separately, to work on that part of the workflow? Well, that is exactly what this agent is doing. It's packaging that logic into an agent, right? So it's saying here, you're a customer retention conversational agent whose goal is to prevent subscription cancellations. Ask for their current plan and reason for dissatisfaction. Use get retention offers to identify return options. And we have this function here, okay? And for now, just say there's a 20% offer available for 1 year, right? So just say that right off the bat. And then we have informational agent, right? You're an information agent for answering informational queries. Your aim is to provide clear, concise responses to user questions. Use the policy below, and then it has this whole policy there. We can expand that, and you can kind of see all this. This is their FAQ or just basic policy that they've pasted it directly here instead of, pasting a URL or something else. Is just embedded. Now, this return agent has this user approval, right? Basically asking if it works or not for the person, which is actually pretty cool. That is a cool feature. But let's go ahead and test out this retention agent because I really found that fascinating. So we go back to my web app, and I have this web app built to support all of these workflows. So if we go to the support router, and let's say handle a return request, prevent the cancellation. So let's say I want to cancel. Let's say what it does. And it's going to route me to that cancellation specialist, cancellation prevention specialist, or whatever they call it. Look at this, cancel subscription. I'm sorry to hear. Could you please tell me which service plan you currently have? And the reason, see, it's not canceling me just yet. It wants to know more, which is kind of cool. So let's say I say I have the Pro. I currently have the Pro package, but I don't like it. It's too expensive. I want to cancel. Okay, and let's see what it says, right? Because this agent is a little bit more involved. Let's see what the answer is. And so there it is. I understand the cost is a concern for you. To help, I can offer you a special discount, a 20% reduction on your current Pro package. Would you be interested? You see how it's doing it. And now, of course, you can design it to ask more and more questions, to offer some freebies, to offer a 10% discount, maybe a 20, 30, whatever, 50% discount. But that is what it came up with. And that is because we have instruction telling it to basically, for now, just say there's a 20% offer available. That's it. It's that simple. I mean, we can click over here and we can make it more complex, more interesting, and have it work on, preventing these cancellations, right? And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else. There's no user approval after this. It's just going to stop at this point. Okay, it's just going to stop. There's nothing else right here. And so that is how this support router workflow works. Now, the last thing that I want to cover is the integration part, because you've probably noticed that I'm using an app to interact with this workflow. Well, like I mentioned throughout the video, there are basically 3 ways that you can integrate Agent Builder with your apps. The first one, and the easiest one, the simplest one, which is what we're using here, is called the ChatKit integration, okay? And if you search for Builder, inside OpenAI Docs, and you go to this agent builder and you scroll down, you're going to be seeing ChatKit integration, right? So if you click on ChatKit, you can see that build and customize an embeddable chat with ChatKit, right? Recommended integration, embed ChatKit in your front end, customize its look and feel, let OpenAI host and scale the backend from Agent Builder. It requires a development server. So I actually have a JavaScript app running here that I have built specifically for this video tutorial. And so that is exactly what it's accessing. It's basically accessing my own app. And I'm going to be making this app available that you can configure for your own workflows. You can simply paste a workflow ID inside of our amazing Patreon community. So all you need to do is take this code, you can run it locally, you can deploy it on Railway or pretty much any other service, put your workflow ID. And if you go over here, you can see that there's a workflow ID right here. It's in the status bar here. And you'll have an app that you or your users can interface with this, with your workflows, with your agent builder workflows there. And so ChatKit is the recommended integration, is the easiest way to integrate your app to your workflow that you built inside of Agent Builder. Now, the second way is using code. Okay, so this is a way where you can essentially have very, very tight integration, but it requires more work, right? OpenAI gives you libraries in various languages. And so if you go into Agents SDK, you can see that we have here something called an OpenAI Agents SDK. And this library makes it straightforward to build agentic applications, right? Where a model can use additional context and tools, hand off to other specialized agents, stream partial results, etc., etc. So this is their main SDK, software development kit, for integrating to this agent builder, to all of these workflows. So that is another way to integrate. And last but not least, you can also integrate using REST API calls. This is the lowest level. And you typically use that only when the app that you're trying to integrate does not support any of these other ways, like ChatKit or Agents SDK. So if there are no libraries for your app, so if you're building a Flutterflow app and there are no libraries that use Agent SDK or ChatKit SDK to create that experience, you will need to use HTTP REST. Of course, the best way is to start with ChatKit. That is exactly why I decided to use ChatKit in this app here, because this allows me very, very easy integration and also have that rich data. But if you have other requirements, you may need to go after another integration. And so that has been an overview and tutorial of the new Agent Builder tool for building all kinds of agent-based workflows that do all kinds of amazing things. Okay, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and definitely check out our amazing Patreon community. I'm going to be providing all the source code that I use to build this app so that you can use this app, customize it, use it with an LLM like Claude Code, or otherwise customize it to your heart's desire, so that you can interact with your own workflows that you may be building using this agent builder. And definitely check out our amazing Patreon community, because I'm going to be making available all the resources that went into building this app, as well as the workflows as well. So that way you can kind of replicate the whole experience, right? You can modify this app, you can adjust it very, very easily, adapt it to your own agent builder workflows by simply modifying a file that stores the IDs. And so that way you or your users can experience the workflows that you may be building in the agent builder via this very robust user interface.